President Trump is fortifying his attacks on Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings and bashing his 7th district, which includes Baltimore. Despite massive backlash to the president's Saturday rant against the city and the Democratic lawmaker who chairs the House Oversight Committee, Trump is back at it again today, tweeting in part, "Someone please explain to Nancy Pelosi, who was recently called racist by those in her own party, that there is nothing wrong with bringing out the very obvious fact that Congressman Elijah Cummings has done a very poor job for his district and the city of Baltimore. The Democrats always play the race card when in fact they have done so little for our nation's great African-American people. Elijah Cummings has failed badly." That from the President of the United States. Thousands of people have spoken up to defend Congressman Cummings' 23 years of service, including Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders and Congressman Jerry Nadler. They both addressed the president's apparent pattern of targeting lawmakers of color today.
Our job is to bring people together to improve life for all people, not to have a racist president who attacks people because they are African Americans. That is a disgrace, and that is why we're going to defeat this president.
The president is, as he usually is, or often is, disgusting and racist. He makes these charges with no base at all, and they are designed to distract attention from the very serious allegations about his conduct that came from the committee hearings this week.
And as more critics voice their condemnation, the president is spending the day at his Virginia golf course. CNN White House correspondent Boris Sanchez is following all of the developments. So, Boris, Trump's acting chief of staff came out this morning defending the president's actions. Tell us more.
That's right, Fred. Mick Mulvaney, the acting chief of staff, explaining that President Trump often says things that offend people, but that his attacks on Representative Cummings and on the city of Baltimore are not about race. He says that critics are reading too deep into the president's comments. He says that the president was simply upset about Elijah Cummings' description of conditions at migrant detention centers along the southern border, and that the president wanted to show that Cummings was being dishonest. Listen to more from the acting chief of staff.
The president is attacking Mr. Cummings for saying things that are not true about the border. I think it's right for the president to raise the issue of, look, I was in Congress for 6 years. If I had poverty in my district like they have in Baltimore, if I had crime in my district like they have in Chicago, if I have homelessness in my district like they have in San Francisco, and I spent all of my time in Washington, D.C. chasing down this Mueller investigation, this bizarre impeachment crusade, I'd get fired. And I think the president is right to raise that. It has absolutely zero to do with race.
To be fair, now, we have heard reports of squalid conditions at these detention facilities that fall in line with the descriptions that we've heard from Congressman Cummings. And also, if you look at the president's tweets, at no point does he even refer to Cummings' description of these migrant centers. He's repeatedly bashing the congressman about his own district and then going further and essentially smearing the city of Baltimore. The White House yet again trying to polish what President Trump said in his tweets yesterday, Fred.
Okay, and then, Boris, it's not just Cummings, who the president is criticizing. He's also tweeting about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Elaborate further on that and the White House response.
Yeah, you just saw the tweets that the president was sending about Nancy Pelosi there. He's effectively misrepresenting something that we heard from Representative Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez about Nancy Pelosi. He's suggesting that she said that she was racist. The representative actually didn't say that in those previous tweets. In this one, the president launches a similar attack on Pelosi that he did on Cummings, attacking her district. He writes, quote, "Speaking of failing badly, has anyone seen what is happening to Nancy Pelosi's district in San Francisco? It is not even recognizable lately. Something must be done before it is too late. The Dems should stop wasting time on the witch hunt hoax and start focusing on our country." The president's still upset that Democrats are considering a potential impeachment, obviously with Robert Mueller's testimony last week. That top of mind for the president. And we're seeing a bit of a preview of the way that he's going to go after Democrats district by district, potentially going into 2020, Fred.
All right. Boris Sanchez, thank you so much. Thanks. All right, joining me right now, Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan. First, I want your reaction to the president's attack on your colleague, Congressman Cummings. How concerning is it that the president may feel emboldened or that he believes this is politically advantageous for him?
You know what I want to say to the president? Mr. President, your job is to unite this country. And when you take shots, as you did at Elijah Cummings in the city of Baltimore, when you take shots at my colleague Rashida Tlaib, you're attacking the constituents of those districts. They take it very personally. Your job is to unite us, not to divide us. And I just think it's so unacceptable, and it's not what the President of the United States is supposed to do.
And in fact, your colleague, Rashida Tlaib, said earlier today, that this president is, sowing hate. He is not advancing any kind of policy, but instead hate. Do you agree with her summation of his actions?
He is. I have to tell you that I actually represent most of the Arab Americans in Michigan. Rashida does not. I have little school children that are grabbing my legs and telling me that they are afraid that someone is going to come and pull them out of their houses in the middle of the night and take them away, and they're never going to be seen again. This is not Germany in the 30s and 40s. This is the United States of America. And I would plead with the president, be a president for everybody. Stop attacking cities that need hope, need you to help them.
And I hate to belabor this, but it is important for people to understand the totality of the words that come from the president and the reaction to the Baltimore Sun, in fact, issuing an op-ed this morning, blasting the president's comments. Just look at the headline, better to have a few rats than to be one, even calling the president, quote, the mocker of war heroes, the gleeful grabber of women's private parts, the serial bankrupter of businesses, and the useful idiot of Vladimir Putin. I mean, this is quite extraordinary. What are your thoughts on, the state of affairs in America when you have words like this, describing the president's language, behavior, and his rants?
So I'm going to tell you, I was somebody, when he got sworn in as president, I respect the office of presidency. We all need to. But the office of the presidency and the president needs to respect the people that he represents. His job is, our Pledge of Allegiance says, united we stand, divided we fall. His job isn't to divide us. That people in this country need hope. They need somebody to care about them. There are a lot of problems out there. But you know what? Put your hand out and say, how do I help you? Let me help you. Don't keep throwing kerosene on a fire. Bring us together. I am really angry. Angrier than I think I've been in many a year.
Are you worried that it's only going to worsen?
I am worried that it's going to worsen. I'm worried about this next election. I'm out there. I hear people. I talk to people. It's not okay. It really isn't okay. And we need to remember the community is the strength of democracy. We've got to support our communities, not tear them apart.
And now, Congresswoman, 2 days ahead of the next Democratic debate, and, health care, public option versus Medicare for all will likely take center stage. Senator Bernie Sanders, made his case for the latter this morning on State of the Union. Take a listen.
Let's talk about one of those issues specifically. You and other 2020 Democrats are going to be debating on the stage just steps from where we are right now. Your Medicare for All plan will be front and center, no doubt. Senator Kamala Harris says she supports it and she will not raise taxes on middle-class Americans to fund it. I want you to take a listen to what former Vice President Joe Biden had to say about that.
Well, I find that people will say they're for Medicare for all, but they're not going to tax the middle class because we don't need to do that. Come on. What is this? This is a fantasy world here?
Do you agree with Vice President Biden that Senator Harris is in a fantasy world? Well, I think the first
thing that we have to understand is under Medicare for all, similar to what Canada has, people are not going to pay any premiums. They're not going to pay any deductibles. They're not going to pay any co-payments. So if you call a premium a tax, we're getting rid of that. But I do believe that in a progressive way, people will have to pay taxes. The wealthy will obviously pay the lion's share of those taxes. But at the end of the day, the vast majority of the American people will pay substantially less for the health care that they now receive because we're going to do away with hundreds of billions of dollars of administrative waste. We're going to do away with the incredible profiteering of the insurance companies and the drug companies. So people will be paying, in some cases, more in taxes, but overall, because they're not going to pay premiums, deductibles, co-payments, they'll be paying less for their health care.
So is Vice President Biden correct that anybody who says Medicare for all is going to happen, but we're not going to raise taxes on anybody or on the middle class,
no, I think
it's a fantasy world?
Well, obviously, health care is not free. Right now, we pay through premiums and out-of-pocket expenses. In Canada, it's paid through taxes. We'll have to do that.
All right, so you are the co-chair for the Medicare for All caucus. So is it fantasy world or, fantasy world versus, essential change that everyone can afford?
So I am a very pragmatic person, and you have to remember who you're talking to. You're talking to a person whose father-in-law was one of the authors of Social Security and was the first person to introduce Medicare for All legislation in the early 40s. My husband introduced it every year since 1955. It took 20 years to get Medicare, then we got Children's Health Insurance Program when we got the Affordable Care Act. Here's a reality, and people have to, I really dug into this. I know this subject. People on the Affordable Care Act, there are people that are paying more for the premiums. They're sky high. Their deductibles are high. People, when you ask people this question, do you believe we should still have private insurance? Medicare for All wouldn't take it away, but why do people think their private insurance is so safe? We're in Detroit. These debates are going to happen in Detroit. In 2008,
will part of that argument be the quality of care that comes with private insurance versus Medicare versus anything else?
But the quality of the care, I want to say, so in 2008, the OEMs, the auto manufacturers, were healthcare providers that built cars on the side. If you're a salaried employee at any of the autos, you lose your private insurance when you turn 65. Adios, you got to go buy your own. We will make sure that the quality is there. And that's why all the stakeholders have to be at the table. It's not us versus them. It's how do you make sure every American's got a right to quality, affordable health care. They can't afford their prescriptions. They can't afford to go to the doctor. And there are too many people that's real for right now. We've got to fix it.
Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, still ahead.